Thank you, Matthew, for the many contributions you make to the enjoyment of our service. Reading today from the book of Exodus, 20th chapter. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord, your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your manservant, nor maidservant, nor your animals, nor the alien within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the seventh day and made it holy. The word of God for the people of God. We've set it up for you, Mark.
You may be seated. Well, I realized a little bit ago that I didn't introduce myself. Most of you know me, but for those of you who don't, I'm Reverend Mark Miller. It's my joy, honor, and privilege to be the associate pastor here at Dalton First United Methodist, and for this opportunity to preach God's word and the message that God has put on my heart this morning. So Pastor Stephen just finished a series on rethinking the church, and I hope that kind of challenged your thinking a little of what it is to be the church. And I really appreciated that series and how he brought that to us. And today is a standalone message. It's not part of the series. It's not part of the next series. The next series I'm really looking forward to as well. It's a 9-week series on the names of God. Doesn't that sound fantastic? Stephen's going to lead us through kind of several Old Testament passages that talk about the different names of God that leads to the activity of God, if you will. So we're really looking forward to that. This morning, my message, before I get started, I also realized nobody has welcomed our televised broadcast guests or our live stream, so we welcome you this morning as well, and we're glad that you could join us this morning. The message this morning is entitled Business Hazards. And we always provide an outline for you. If you turn to the back of your worship guide and you grab the pen in front of you, you'll be able to follow along with me, and I'll have you fill in the blanks in a few spots. But it's called Business Hazards, and this week, can I just brag on our church staff for a second? I don't know if you know this, but you have incredible church staff here at this church. I mean, we just saw Matthew's awesome work on display, but he does so much behind the scenes as well. Hannah does so much. David and Tom and Audrey, Patty, they just do so much. So if you see them this week, please show them your appreciation. I'm sure that they would be happy to hear that. But I wanted to bring that up because our staff this week, one member of our staff this week, faced her own business hazards, and it was basically at my hands. Some of you probably saw that lift out back at the atrium. Well, we've been doing some work in here, trying to get our sound system up and running and get the lights. We finally got the chandelier back there working, and we needed a lift for a lot of those things. And we were planning on using the lift to try to do some work in Famber on the bulb that's in our projector, but it wasn't charged when we wanted to use it. So what was the next option? A 12-foot ladder that I and Matthew are afraid of heights. So we weren't going to be the ones to go up there, but Hannah said, hey, I'm a former foster parent. Nothing scares me. She got up and down that ladder probably six or seven times, and to me it seemed like she had a death wish or something getting up on a tall ladder like that, but she got through it. So she experienced a business hazard this week, but that's not the kind of business hazard that I'm referring to this morning. You know, a few years ago, I was working on a sermon on burnout. There's a whole series on just burnout and Sabbath. How I ended it was a sermon on Sabbath. It's different than the one this morning. But in that series, I shared a definition of burnout. I don't think you're going to find this in Merriam-Webster. I don't think you're going to find this really too many other places besides this one book that I read, but it's resonated with me. The definition of burnout is not working until you hit that proverbial wall. The definition of burnout is working until you hit that proverbial wall and working more, breaking through the wall. This morning I want to talk to you about rest. I want to talk to you about before you get to that point of burnout. Because if we don't take our adequate rest, God called us to, and what Bill read this morning, he called us to rest, right? He called us to take a day. I'm going to challenge you to take more than a day, but he called us to take a day to rest and just be. Now, I must confess something to you. I should be in the audience of this sermon. I should not be up here giving this because it seems kind of contradictory to me that I'd be the one telling y'all to rest when I should be the one hearing that message. But we run into so many different stumbling blocks. I've heard so many people who are so prideful of the work that they do, which is great. You should take pride in what you do, but you shouldn't take pride in only doing what you do. Or if that's how you spend your time 24/7 is working, you're going to get burnt out. You're going to get to the point that I just can't go on anymore. So this morning I provided 4 fill in the blanks for you. 4 things that happen when you are busy all of the time. Let's go through the first one. First one is, I no longer see clearly. I no longer see clearly. So for the 3 years that I was in seminary and Elise was in law school, we lived in Atlanta. I heard a few scoffs, but if you ask Elise, she wants to live back in Atlanta for an extended period of time. But we lived in Atlanta, and we would drive up to Michigan for Christmas. We're originally from Michigan. You can imagine how long that drive was. But we would always stop in southern Indiana to stay with my great aunt and uncle for the night, and then continue our drive the next day. However, there was one year, it was our last year of grad school. Our second to last semester was just completed. I had just taken all my exams for that period. I had just ended an internship with one of the Emory hospitals to be a chaplain at that hospital. The next day, the day after, I even had to switch my clinical hours that week so I could leave the next day for our Christmas trip. That was on a Friday that we left. On that Thursday, I had to respond to 5 deaths within a 3-hour period at that hospital. When we got to Michigan and we got to my mother and stepfather's house, I had to just lay on the couch, put my head on Elise's lap, and I said, I cannot see. My vision was so blurry at that point because I was just so burnt out, so stressed, so to the point of just breaking down. I was so out of it. And friends, that's what can happen. That's what happens, not only physically, but spiritually. We don't have a clear vision for God, for what God has in store for us, right? We get to the point that we're burnt out, that we just keep working and doing and thinking that this is what God wants us to do. But we ignore the passages like Hannah read this morning. We ignore the passages that say, I have an easy yoke for you. We ignore the passages in the 10 Commandments that say to keep a day wholly devoted to God and to rest. 4 things that can happen. One of them is that you cannot see clearly physically or spiritually. Back in 2020, I had a procedure done. I had LASIK surgery back in 2020. I know during a pandemic that doesn't sound like a smart thing to do, but I did it anyway. I had worn glasses since the time I was 6, and I just wanted 5 or 6, and I just wanted to be able to see clearly without my glasses. And to this day, it was one of the best decisions I've made. I have no regrets in having that surgery. But it reminds me of how many times have we ignored God's correction in our lives for us to see clearly. We are the ones that are putting the blinders on. We are the ones trying to say, if I just stay busy, all of my stress will go away. If I just stay busy, I can accomplish so many different things. But you're not your best self if you do not take a rest. When we are too stressed, too worn out, too exhausted, we can become physically and spiritually blind. We get into tunnel vision. We hem ourselves into this reality of, I have to be busy all the time or else I'm not successful. We see rest, we see pausing, we see breaks as lazy. We see it as they're not doing their job. When in reality, they need to take breaks in order to do their job. So the first one, I no longer see clearly. The second one, I no longer listen carefully. I no longer listen carefully. If you're anything like me, anytime that I have a lot on my to-do list, either at work or maybe home improvement projects or just work around the house, laundry, cooking, that kind of thing, I cannot be present in the moment. There have been several times that Elise has had to tell me, the kids are trying to get your attention. The kids are talking to you. Because I'm just so wrapped up in my mind, right? I'm just so wrapped up in my mind that I have to say, I need to get this done. As soon as I get to work tomorrow, I need to sit down at my desk and do this, and this. That's not healthy. That's not healthy. One thing that I love about being on the staff that I'm on is that there's always encouragement that when you're home, you're home. When you're home, you're not at work. When you're at home, you're home. And I find that I cannot listen as well. I can hear when I'm busy, when I'm stressed, when I'm doing things all the time. I can hear the noise, but I can't listen. There's a difference between hearing and listening, right? There's a difference between hearing and being able to listen to God. When I have a lot to do, I cannot be present with my family. I feel that I cannot be present with my family. But at the same time, I will not apologize for prioritizing my family, my role as a father and husband, over my role as a pastor. And it should be the same with everyone. There are so many different things that we can label ourselves before we get to whatever our job is, even if it's a calling from God. Even if it's a ministry that we feel we're called to, there's so many titles that are much more important than what our job is. What are we missing from God when we do not take a rest and intentionally focus on what God has called us to do? Not only can we not listen carefully to our family, to our friends, to the people that we love the most, we cannot listen to God completely if we're always busy. If we think that God's going to speak to us, he's speaking to us while we're busy, but if we think that we can hear him while we're busy, I have not heard one person that's told me that they heard the voice of God while they are accomplishing everything that they have done at work. In fact, the 2 times in my life that I've heard God's voice audibly were the times that I was intentionally listening for God's voice. The 2 times that I didn't know what to expect But I said, this time is yours, God. This time is yours. And yet there's these times that we think if we're busy all of the time, we can still multitask, we can still hear each other, we can still listen for the voice of God, and yet we busy ourselves because we don't want to hear the voice of God. We busy ourselves because if we listen carefully for God, maybe He's going to send us somewhere that we don't want to go. Maybe if He sends us somewhere that we don't want to go, maybe we actually have to start busying ourselves more so we can say, I can't go there right now. I have all this stuff to do. See how it's a cyclical kind of thing? We don't want to hear from God, so we busy ourselves. But we need to listen carefully, and the only way we can do that is if we are intentionally present with God. So I no longer see clearly. I no longer listen carefully when I'm busy. And when I'm busy, I no longer think deeply. Now, I think Elise would argue that I don't ever think deeply, but at the same time, it's very difficult for me to even start having any productive thoughts when I'm just busy, when I have so much to do, when there's so much on my to-do list, when I feel like I need to accomplish everything. I can see the person in front of me, I can listen for them carefully, I can hear their needs, I can hear their desires, but my mind is just so foggy that I'm not sure I can actually give them an answer that is helpful for them. I feel bad that many times I've told people, right now I can't answer that completely. I'll have to get back to you after I do some research or after I think about it more. Because I cannot be fully present in that moment because I'm checking things off my to-do list or adding things, that's probably more likely, adding things to my to-do list. If we can't be completely present, if we can't take a rest enough that we can be completely present in the next situation, then why are we trying to accomplish anything? And that situation that I described before when we got to Michigan and I just had to lay down, you could have asked me the most philosophical question in the world and I would have said, I'm not doing that right now. There was no capacity for me to think anything. I had just driven 12 hours. I'm not doing that. In the same way, when you're busy all the time, when you just worked for 8 hours and you just went go, you can't think deeply. There's a reason, and the staff probably hates me for this, but there's a reason that I take so many laps around this building each day. It's because I need to take a break and just walk around and clear my mind for just 5 minutes every 2 hours or so. Because if I don't, I'm going to get burnt out. I'm not going to be able to think deeply. I'm not going to be able to go into the parts of my mind that I need to think what God would have me respond, right? Because friends, we're all prone, whether you want to admit it or not, we're all prone to react in ways that are not godly. Can we agree with that? We are all prone to act in ways that are not godly. And when we're busy, when we're burnt out, when we're stressed, when we're tired, that just amplifies it to the max. So, when I'm busy all the time, I no longer see clearly. I no longer listen carefully. Oh, before I get there, I'm sorry. Part of thinking deeply, there's going to be times that people come up to us and we think what they're telling us is the best possible thing to do. But if you're busy and you're stressed and you're tired, the devil is easy to deceive us, right? When we have our mind only focused on the work that we have to do, only focused on our to-do list, only focused on our stresses, it's easy to get swindled. It's easy to fall into a trap. We can't tell if they're false prophets that are right in front of us because we don't know how God would want us to act in that situation because we cannot think that deeply. All right. I can no longer see clearly when I'm busy. I can no longer listen carefully when I'm busy all the time. I can no longer think deeply when I'm busy all the time. And I can no longer savor life fully. Like I said before, I do not apologize for prioritizing my family over everything. For being a husband, for being a father, I do not apologize for that. But the issue comes in when I can't be the best version of myself. I can't be the best husband. I can't be the best father. I can't be the best person, the best version of myself because I am too stressed. I'm too burnt out. I'm too wiped out to savor the blessings that are in front of me. I'm too worried, too bogged down in everything to see the blessings, to experience life anew in Christ. Because here's the thing: we can intentionally go to our happy place. For a lot of people, that happy place is the beach. For some people, that happy place is just somewhere in the middle of the forest, or somewhere that you can experience God. We can do that, but can you savor it fully? Because you can shut off your brain to the point of being able to walk away from your stress, walk away from your busy. If you're still sending those work emails, or you're still responding to the texts and the phone calls, then are you really savoring life to the fullest? This past May, I went to Ghost Ranch in New Mexico on a continuing education trip. Everything except for 2 or 3 lunches was paid for during that week. So it's always a plus, and it always helps me savor life fully when people give me free things. But before I left on that, I told the staff, I'm trying to be as present with them, with my group, as possible. So if you could, try not to contact me. Try not to. Of course, that was one of the times that I just had to be contacted, and Hannah and I were trying to call back and forth. Doug and I were trying to call back and forth. But at the end of it, a staff member that I'm not going to name came up to me and said, "We really did not need you. You could have shut off your phone and been fully present there." It's human nature, isn't it? To always want our phone on, to always want to be in the know, to receive that text message, to receive that email, to respond to that email. But friends, if you can't take the time just to be with God, you're not going to be your full, best version of yourself. And that's what God wants us to be, is the best version of ourselves. All right, so we have the four things that happen when we're busy all the time. And you see those 3 blanks at the bottom. We pulled words out of the scripture itself from Exodus. When God talks to Moses about what the Sabbath day is supposed to be, we pulled these words straight out there. Let me read at the end there. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. So in that blank next to rest, I want you to write, it's going to be up on the screen so you don't have to remember it. Stop, cease, and desist. Stop, cease, and desist. If you're anything like me, this is not your version of rest. Rest to me, which is a problem, let me start with that, is responding to those emails. You know, if I don't respond to this email now, it's just going to keep piling up and my inbox is just going to be so full. Let your inbox get full. If I don't respond to this person that's calling me on a Friday, they're just going to keep calling me and calling me and calling me. Let them call you. Stop. Be fully present with God. I once went to this conference, and for 3 hours, they had this opportunity for us just to stay in silence. We could go anywhere we wanted to. It was a huge room, bigger than this sanctuary. We could go anywhere in this room. But the one rule was that not a word was to be spoken. Not a sound was to be made. They said the only sounds that they wanted to hear was our pens scratching against the paper of whatever we wanted to write down. Any guesses on how many times we broke the silence in that 3-hour period? Over 50 times somebody tried to talk and the facilitator had to say, "We are not doing that right now. We are trying to find some time with God. We have our whole lives to spend with each other. But friends, do we intentionally take that time to spend with God?" So he rested on the seventh day. And then these two I kind of took out of order, so forgive me. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. And next to holy, I want you to write, set apart for a special purpose. Set apart for a special purpose. That's what God means when he makes things holy, is that it's set apart for a special purpose. When we sing the song, "Take Time to Be Holy," take time to be set apart for a special purpose, to lean into God, to show God that you are attuned and in tune to him. It is intended to prosper you. This time of Sabbath is intended to prosper you and spend time working on your relationship, not spend time working on your to-do list. Spend time working on your relationship with God. It is not intended for you to catch up on work. Last blank there. Blessed it. I want you to write down, he handed it down as a gift. Handed it down as a gift. This isn't something that he says, if you have time to do, I want you to do this. No. No. God has made it clear all throughout the Bible. This is something that you need to do in order to further the kingdom of God. He handed it down as a gift. Friends, it is my joy to be up here with you this morning, to be preaching for you this morning. And I hope that this time you can really think about ways to be intentional with your rest, ways to be intentional with finding your relationship with God, to furthering your relationship with God. You know, Elise and I, every single year, I told you this before, we go to a camp meeting in Michigan. And in that time, spoiler alert, that's one of the 2 times that I intentionally listened for God and I heard his voice audibly. I shut out everything from the world and I was present in that moment. When God told me, even though you're not a pastor yet, when they recognize the pastors, I need you to stand up. Because you are holy and set apart for a purpose. Friends, I'm challenging you, find a way to rest. Find a way to be intentionally present with God. Find a way. Shut off your phone, shut off your computer, shut off whatever you need to shut off, and find a way to be fully present with God. Now, I know for some of you that'll look like watching the Braves or watching Alabama, but for others of you, that might be just reading your Bible. It might be praying. It might be journaling. It might be doing something. But friends, as long as that time is wholly devoted to God and that you're open to what he has to tell you, that's what God is asking for in this moment.